Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode. Manny Talks Shooting is proudly presented to you by D2 Custom Guns. Did you know that Phil the Groundhog isn't the only thing Puxatawny, Pennsylvania is famous for? That's right, D2 Custom Guns, the home of Dan Heizenreiter and one of the best, fabulous 2011 builders in the country. So make sure you guys go check him out, D2 Custom, anywhere you can see him on the social media, Facebook, Instagram, go check him out. If you see myself, Patches Reader, anyone with the D2 Custom Guns, make sure you go check him out, and you will thank me later. Now, let's get on to the show. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Manny Talks Shooting, the shooting podcast on the internet, because that's where you listen to it on your drive, in your home, or on your phone. You listen to Manny Talks Shooting every Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show is proudly presented to you by D2 Custom Guns, one of the fabulous 2011 builders on the market. You know, Dan builds fabulous guns. If you want a gun, go to d2customguns.com. Tell him Manny sent you and get that gun ordered, because you won't be disappointed. Just like one of our lucky winner from the Buckeye Blast, who won a limited optics gun through our raffle. But hey, that's all good. Today we're sitting down with a man with, how do I put this nicely? No, just kidding. A man who is not that tall in stature, but has a good reputation within the sport. We're sitting down with my good friend Dan Click. How you doing, Dan?
Was that the nice way of doing that?
I mean, I can't put it as nicely as you, but
understood. All good.
Manny, what am I, chopped liver?
And then we have our friend Corey. This is actually Corey's first time sitting on the... No, this is Corey's second time on the podcast. He's just not cool enough to be by himself. Dan needed a hand holding, so Corey's here for moral support. No, just kidding. Corey's just here because he's here. Anywho, Dan, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good.
You know, we talked yesterday, and guess what? You were in some other city, and now you're back home. Unless you have a really good program background.
No, I am back home. I was in Chicago yesterday and just got back from Florida from last week. So been doing a little bit of travel, so glad to be home.
Yeah, I bet the family is too. It's like, hey, there's that guy just sitting his lazy boy.
Although we just got back from a family vacation, so they were probably ready for me to do some work travel.
Oh, so they can have another vacation.
Right.
It's all good. So some people may know you. I mean, hopefully a lot of people know you or recognize your name from your time last year on the board. But for most people who don't know you, who are you and how did you get into shooting?
Yeah, thanks, Manny. It's kind of interesting. I've had an interesting journey, and I'll start in my shooting life before USPSA. So in the way back when I was a kid, my father was a Ohio State trooper, and we would go out to the range frequently on weekends and go out and shoot Smith & Wesson Model 10 revolvers with super light loads, but we'd set up some pop cans and some paper plates and go out there and shoot on the weekends, which was always a lot of fun. So to fast forward, I was actually not in the shooting sports. This is going back 20 more years ago. I was actually playing, kind of sort of competitive soccer in adult leagues. Got injured pretty significantly in 2 consecutive years, tore my ACL and tore my Achilles, and really couldn't continue to play soccer at the level I wanted to. But I was still very competitive. So I started doing some research and looking around to say, hey, what else can I do since I can't play soccer anymore at the level I wanted to? And I stumbled upon USPSA. I was living in Illinois at the time. And it was really interesting because I thought, I used to shoot with my dad. That was a lot of fun. But then when I started seeing the videos online and so forth of USPSA, I'm like, well, I need to try that out. So went to a couple of ranges in Illinois, just kind of northwest of Chicago, and watched a couple matches. Didn't even have a gun to shoot or a gun belt or anything. I just went to check it out and fell in love with it. I mean, it was really the coolest thing that most extreme sport that you could do. Probably more so than the actual shooting, though, was the people. I was brand new to those clubs showing up. Nobody knew me. But every person that I talked with was sharing with me kind of what guns they were shooting with and what kind of equipment they had and their journey on becoming a USPSA member, and what they liked about the sport. So to me, it was a combination of wanted to do something competitive and do something that was going to be fun to do. Shooting, I think, is something that's fun to do, but also the people were amazing. And that's been true. After I lived in Illinois for a while, I moved to Michigan. I lived in Michigan for about 12 years. Met a lot of folks. There's probably going to be people on the podcast here that know me from the days in Michigan. And that's really where I started to expand giving back to the sport. Became a range officer and then a chief range officer. Um, and it really, to me, it was interesting to see both sides of the sport. One side being just the purely competitive, hanging out with your friends, shooting on a weekend, and then the other part actually working matches and giving back to the sport and being a volunteer. I will tell you that this sport doesn't work if we don't have awesome volunteers, and we really do have awesome volunteers. Um, I know a lot of people may just come out and shoot, and that's great. But it doesn't work if we don't have all the folks out there giving up their weekends, giving up their weeks of vacation, et cetera, to come out and play and volunteer for folks. So then it's just kind of continued to expand and, working with the folks like Corey and others in terms of um, expanding our footprint in terms of matches at Cardinal was there were a lot of folks, including folks like Rick Steele, Scott Beebe, Don Bates, others who really kind of pushed forward the opportunity for us to start shooting at Cardinal. There have been long-term conversations with the ownership at Cardinal. But we were able to actually make it work and bring USPSA to Cardinal Shooting Center in Marengo, Ohio. A lot of folks may have been to some of our national events, or I think we're going to later on talk about some of the major matches that we have going on there. But that's a whole other side of the sport. Again, match directing, running major matches, running local matches. And really, we kind of pride ourselves. I think Corey would echo this sentiment, is we really want to be the premier place to come and shoot excellent matches. I think one of the mantras that Corey and I have worked on as we've been match directors there is that we are going to try new things. I think everybody would recognize that some of the things that Corey and I have tried haven't worked the greatest. Some of the things that we've tried have worked really well. But the only way you get better is by trying new things and
So this year,
expanding.
for example, this year at Buckeye Blast, we ordered the rain, and we really wanted. Oh, wait.
Well, people hadn't shot in the rain enough, so we ordered some cold rain, some 40-degree rain, because that's what everybody likes to shoot in. We probably won't order that again.
No, but we are ordering waterproof targets.
We are ordering waterproof targets, absolutely. So those are already on the agenda. So that's kind of the journey that I've taken, and I probably actually spend, not probably, I for sure spend significantly more time, and I would call it match administration, whether it's running matches, being a range master, um, setting up matches, designing stages, than I do actually shooting now. And I find both sides to be incredibly enjoyable to me. But I've actually kind of shifted more towards the match administration part of the work, and giving back. And then lastly, I'll just say, I was honored by the various uh, club coordinators and so forth to be and section coordinators in Area 5 when Rick Steele stepped down to take over in the interim role as the Area 5 director, which was, again, another big education for me. I had not been on the board for USPSA before. So stepping into that role and seeing another side of the sport, another side of our organization, I think it was really enlightening to me. What I can tell you is that, um, notwithstanding any of the conversations that you might hear around on social media and so forth, the board really does excellent work. There is a lot of time and effort and deliberation that the board does put into running the organization. So that was very enlightening to me, and so again got to see another side of the sport. So my journey has been very interesting in going from competitor to range officers, match directing, board member, etc. So it's been a really exciting journey. I will tell you, I love this sport. I love this organization. I think it's it is one of the coolest things that you can do. I can tell you, even when I meet friends or others, and I send them links or show where to go to watch videos. As soon as they watch it, especially as soon as they do it, they're hooked.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I would even say, and Dan, we've been on this journey together for the last 4 years. Um, Even when we're not having fun, because for whatever reason it's raining, or our guns aren't running, or we're just tired, it's still a lot of fun.
It is.
A bad day on the range is still way better than a good day at work.
Yeah, yeah. An interesting thing, Manny, that Corey and I did and a few others this January, we went down to Florida and shot IPSC Extreme. And the interesting thing is we weren't staff. We didn't sign up for anything. We were just competitors. And it was really a lot of fun because before that, I can't tell you the last time I went to a match where I just competed, where I wasn't doing something in terms of match administration, being a range officer, whatever it might be. But that was one of the first matches in a long time that I just went and got to enjoy the sport again. And it was really exciting for me. It's something I'm going to continue to do, and go out there. I don't know, Corey, what your thoughts are, because you do the same as me. I mean, you work every match.
Yeah, so that was an eye-opening experience. Partially, obviously, we're running IPSC Nationals, so that's why we chose that specific match this last year. But it's definitely was an opportunity to have a lot of fun. 30 stages in 3 days, but also just to hang out, just to get out of Cleveland for cold, snowy Cleveland in the middle of January was a nice opportunity too.
But getting out of Cleveland in the middle of July is also nice. So
not being in Cleveland, period, is better than anything. Sorry, Corey, you got to move out of Elyria, bro.
No, it's fine. I like where I live.
Yeah, says him, only him.
Look at the background; it's beautiful.
Yeah, we all know what's really behind that 3D that green screen. But that was a lot to unpack, Dan. So I want to bounce back a little bit. So you said your dad was an Ohio State trooper. So obviously, and you got to plink with him with his Model 10, Smith & Wesson Model 10. Was that a once a year kind of thing, or was that a once?
No,
was it a more once in a while?
Yeah, it was more than once in a while. I mean, I would say that probably once or twice a month, during the decent weather, we would go out. A couple times a month, we'd go out and shoot. And I will tell you that my dad reloaded, so that was my entry into reloading even before I knew how to reload. I'm not so sure the rounds that we were shooting out of his revolver would have even made minor. You could basically throw it through the barrel a bit faster than the gun would fire. But it was a good experience being a young guy. And I'm saying, like, when I was probably 10 or younger, I think I got my own first pistol from my dad when I was 12 or 13. So always kind of doing it, always kind of around it. But yeah, I'd say probably a couple times a month we would go out and do a little plinking.
Well, that's good. So that kind of, you grew up in a gun friendly zone, in a family that, because there's a lot of people who get in the sport who come from an anti-gun background. They're like,
Absolutely.
They find guns way later in life, and then they're hooked still. But it's still like it's always cool to interesting, like the starts and the growth of that love for the Second Amendment and the sports and shooting in general. So
yeah, I will tell you, you mentioned Second Amendment. I'm obviously a very strong Second Amendment person. I want people to be out there shooting. And while I certainly want them to shoot USPSA because I think USPSA is awesome and it's so much fun, I want them to shoot every time they get an opportunity. I want you to go and shoot sporting clays. I want you to go and shoot an IDPA match. I want you to go and shoot wherever you get the opportunity to express your Second Amendment rights. I want people to be doing that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that, get out there and enjoy the sport. Bring someone else into the sport or into the shooting sports or, NRA shoots or hunting in general. So that's what the big thing is in the advocacy that we all can provide by just talking to one person. I know that I've thrown a couple, USPSA brochures down on the work break room table. And everyone's like, what is this? And then I have an organic conversation at work about it. Luckily, I live in a great state that I can do that without getting any in trouble. So.
Yeah, and honestly, advocating for the other shooting sports isn't being negative on USPSA at all. It's simply saying, hey, get out there and shoot as often as you can. Go spend time outside and be with your friends, and show your Second Amendment rights. I mean, do it as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
I go one step further than that. I want people to shoot it, obviously, but I think the bigger thing is be educated. Be educated on what the Second Amendment means. Be educated on how to use your gun and educate others. So, and I think that's, you can express your Second Amendment in many different ways. Just going to the range is awesome, but learn what it means, and more specifically, learn how to safely carry a gun. Because if we flood the market, if you will, with a bunch of unsafe people, at some point that also treads on our Second Amendment.
Yeah, the interesting thing, USPSA, I describe it to people as it's the most extreme, in my opinion, most extreme of extreme sports. I mean, we're running around with a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is the most safe sport. I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, Indy 500 happened. Look at the crashes. Now, people walked away from those crashes, but look at the crashes that happened in the Indy 500 or the Coca-Cola 600 this weekend. People get in car crashes just on the highway. If you think about USPSA, it is an extreme sport, but the safety that we have in our sport is second to none. And I really think that sometimes folks get frustrated with some of the safety rules, but to me, when you have that strict safety standards, we have redundancy in our safety rules. It really creates an environment where people can run around a range and shoot at targets, and everybody is doing it safely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's a rule. If there's a rule, it happened at some point, so we had to fix it. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, our rule book, for the most part, I mean, everyone talks about it. It's a massive rule book. I wouldn't say it's super massive, but I mean, there's IDPA has a thinner rule book, but it tells you so much more what you can and can't do while you're shooting than like a USPSA rule book that is pretty much safety aligned, and some simple ruling for silly Virginia count that everyone hates, but Dan loves for some reason.
Yeah, just sometimes. I do think if you talk to some of the folks who've been around for a long time, probably almost every rule in our rule set is because of a real life situation that had to be adjudicated and had to figure out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we take that to too far of a degree, but it's something that's really happened, and we're trying to make sure that everybody's following the same rule set. Which again is one of the cool things about our sport. It doesn't matter whether you're shooting in Illinois or Mississippi or Texas. You're all going to be working from the same rule set.
Oh, yep, 100%. Go ahead, Corey.
I think that's what makes the sport. That's what makes USPSA different. If you look at all of the other sports, aside from maybe IDPA, you have these subsects of different rule books, and you go to Kentucky and they've got their own 3-gun rule book, and you go to somewhere else and they've got their own rule book, or you've got an outlaw match or whatnot. And the fact that you can go, I've traveled across the country shooting USPSA, and every time I get there, they hand me this, they look at me and say, hey, you know the rules, right? I'm like, yep, it's the same rule book.
Right.
Yeah, you might have a club rule here and there that it makes the match a little bit different, but yes, everyone has the same rules.
But even the club rules, like, they don't change the game.
No.
If you think about World Shoot, the PCC mini rifle World Shoot that just happened, one club rule that they had there was you couldn't put the muzzle of the gun over the back berm. But the back berms were like 25 feet high. It didn't change the game other than making sure that they didn't flag above the berms while loading and unloading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of a tweak here and there, but yeah, overall same match. Speaking of that, I've been watching Lena Michelik's produced video of her at the World Shoot. It was actually pretty cool. The guy who was the videographer for that did a really good job. He told the story, and it's kind of cool because you got to see a lot of Lena's mom Kay in it, and she was like her coach. And it was kind of cool because Kay and Jerry, top level shooters, and it's kind of just cool to see Kay become the coach and just tell Lena to shoot. Like, but Anywho, I want to bounce back into Dan. So Dan, did you play soccer in college, or was this just something you picked up as an adult?
No, I played soccer from the time I was in kindergarten, all the way till I was in my kind of mid 30s, young 30s. I did not play at the collegiate level, but I played while I was in college.
Did you try out for the Ohio State team?
I did not.
Why?
The actual story was I was going to the University of Cincinnati, and I did interview with the coach, but was not recruited.
Wait, so
Apparently, I
so the
was not
biggest Ohio State
quite
fan
good
I
enough.
know didn't
Yes.
even go to Ohio State.
Well, at the time, this is where time differences happen. At the time when I was going to college, Ohio State's soccer team actually wasn't very good. Cincinnati was actually a better team at the time. That's changed. I mean, the men's soccer team at Ohio State is much, much better now. But, being a lot older and a lot slower, I don't think I could make the team now.
No, nor do you have time. You would have no time to go play soccer if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
hanging out with us.
yeah, exactly.
That's cool. So that leads some of your competitiveness, right? Like if you've always been
Absolutely.
like, and then there's the people who played sports as they grew up who are super competitive, and then there's the guys who just become competitive, via whatever like their small hobbies that they found later in life.
Yeah, I,
Which
I mean, I was always playing sports all the way through school and everything, and I know you can start the jokes now, but I even played basketball at one point when I was the same height as all the other kids, and then everybody kept growing and I did not. So that kind of ended the basketball career. But I played baseball, I played basketball, I played soccer. So that competitive spirit and that drive to always be, either on teams or competing in some way, that's always kind of been in my DNA. And like I said, when I got injured after playing soccer for a couple, kind of later in my soccer career, I had to find something else that was going to be competitive. USPSA is definitely it.
hmm yeah, the nice thing is you can be competitive. You might not be competing for say the overall slot, but you could be competing in your class or your age category or the
Yeah, I think that one of the things I find interesting, I started USPSA when I was in my 30s, and I look at some of the young people that we have that are starting as juniors, and they're, coming out with their parents when they're, the kids 13, 14, 15 years old. Man, if I would have started this sport when I was 14 years old, I mean, it's a whole different scenario. So I'm kind of jealous of the young folks that are able to do that. And I think that's one of the areas that we just have to continue on is making sure that we're bringing that next generation of shooters and competitors into our organization because it really is truly a lot of fun. But yeah, if you could, if I would have done this, 20 years before, it would have been a different story.
yeah
Sitting
you'd
here with the national champion.
Yeah, I don't know
yeah.
about that, but
One of these days, you could still win a national championship, Dan. It just wouldn't.
yeah,
It's going to be senior, or super senior, or
maybe
Super senior L10 national champion.
exactly.
distinguished senior L10 national champion.
Well, it's
Yeah,
okay. I think it should be cool. It would have been cool when like the board, like most of the board members go to like at least one of the nationals, right? So you could have the board the board national champion.
we could just have just amongst the board members and
Yep.
and nominate a board national champion.
Yep. And then you got to get the managing director or the staff national. You could add the staff into the USPSA staff into that. So at least there's enough to count.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But so you said you started shooting. You first went and watched a USPSA match in Northwest Chicago. Indoor match, outdoor
Yeah,
match.
these were outdoor matches, and they were. When I say that, it was in Rockford, Illinois,
hmm
which is probably an hour ish outside of Chicago. But they were all outdoor matches. I prefer outdoor. I just like the movement. I like being outside. I like the movement. I like the just the outdoor ranges. There are some excellent indoor ranges. I know Midwest Shooting Center has they put on excellent indoor matches. And I've been to some others that are really good. I just personally prefer outdoors, but my first foray into USPSA was at outdoor ranges in Rockford.
I was just gonna guess when you said Northwest Chicago. I'm like, okay, it's got to be Rockford
Yeah,
because that's like the only place around there that isn't in Wisconsin.
exactly, exactly.
I mean, like they just hosted the Northern Illinois Section Championship in Wisconsin.
again.
Exactly. Again.
But yeah, no, Rockford's cool. It's the home of the Rockford Ice Hogs, the AHL team for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
It's the only thing and then the only notable other thing is Pine Tree Pistol Club.
Yep.
The yellow inside walls that
Yep.
there's a plethora of pictures inside the RO seminars of Pine Tree. I'm like, oh, yep, I know exactly where that's at.
Yeah. If you look at my classifications, some of my early classifications were at Pine Tree.
Oh, and I'm gonna have to go stalk that later. I mean, if it even goes back
They
that
weren't very
far.
good. Don't get me wrong, they weren't good. I'm just saying that they did happen at that range.
Gotcha. And then you at least moved to Michigan. I mean, and then would you primarily shoot at DSC?
Shot a lot at DSC, shot at Brooklyn, kind of anything that was available in really mostly Southeast Michigan, I would shoot.
Yeah, and so those clubs are still around today. It's kind of crazy. You see nowadays like some of the super old clubs like Livingston, right? Like is
Yep.
MIO4. I want to believe is MIO4. And they're still around. I mean, and then there's some clubs that barely last a season, and then their numbers they're and gone. But then
And
you
I
see
think
some
that
of
some
these.
of those places, even like Livingston and stuff, they do other things, and so they expand the activities that happen at the club. It's obviously not just USPSA. And I think if you kind of spread the wealth and you're doing a variety of different activities, I think it really helps those clubs. But you're absolutely right. I mean, some of those clubs have been around for a really long time.
And you guys actually in Ohio aren't the newest club anymore. You've had like
That's correct.
a couple newer clubs since your time of getting off the board. So what since January you taken over as the North Ohio section coordinator.
That's correct. Yeah.
How are you gonna fill Scott Beebe's really tall shoes?
It's really difficult, but I will say that if there's a corner for me to go to, I'm going to go to that corner, and then I'm going to look for targets to shoot. So,
See,
um,
you know the recipe.
that is the recipe for Scott Beebe. So, no, Scott's did an awesome job. I know he's focusing a little bit of time with the boys and family and so forth. And so, but yeah, so helping with the Ohio North section. It's interesting. Ohio, a lot of clubs. We are split between Ohio South and Ohio North, but there is a lot of conversations that go on between the two sections, and including, for example, hosting Buckeye Blast that just happened at the beginning of May. For the last few years, Ohio North was actually the host of Buckeye Blast. This past year, this year, it was Ohio South, even though it was actually hosted at Cardinal Shooting Center. So we work closely together, and making sure that we do things like looking at calendars to make sure that people aren't going over top of each other and scheduling matches with it at the same time. Coordinating staffing and so forth like that. So for looking when there's going to be major matches. And there's a lot of folks that will come from kind of Northeast Ohio down to Cardinal, and work our major matches and so forth. So,
Yeah,
but yes,
exactly.
you're absolutely right. Big shoes to fill, was from Scott Beebe.
I don't know about big, tall shoes. I mean,
Tall
remember,
shoes.
tall shoes. Scott
Yeah,
was
understood.
One crazy part, though, and this is a testament to Scott and obviously Dan and I, but I was looking, and I'm going to pull it up here and show it, but I was looking at the top 20 clubs in the different metrics that USPSA rates, and we actually had a top 20, two top 20s in the North, in Ohio North.
Right.
One of them was Scott, and then one of them was actually Cardinal Practical Shooters, but based on the number of competitors that came through the club in 1 year. So I'll pull it up here, but if I can find it.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, I think that really is a testament to the quality of matches that are put on at those ranges. And, the fact that we aren't able to shoot year round like some of the places, I think some of the top clubs are places like Rio, they're able to shoot year round. We're not able to shoot year round. But we're still able to attract a high number of competitors, because of the excellent matches we put on.
hmm and I was talking, Dan. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I would have, I said this, but I'll say it in front of Corey. As I would love to see if we were able to find a true metric of like unique individual shooters and see how many unique shooters actually came to Cardinal Practical Shooters.
Yeah.
See and the difference between people who keep coming back for multiple matches, or the people we get one time a year, or or they come to Area 5, or they're going to come to IPSC Nationals.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Just tell Rick Brotzel he can scour the data.
No, I mean I can do it. It just sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
If I could find that screenshot, I would, but I can't. So Cardinal had I think it was number 19 with just over 1,000 unique entries, or a little bit more than 1,000 unique entries.
1,100, 1,138 or something like that.
And then DSS, Dynamic Shooting Sports, which is Scott Beebe's club, ran just a hair under that. He also ran one of the top 20 classifier clubs in the country as well. So I think we put down like 8 or 9 classifiers total last year, if that, and he put down like 17. So
yeah, and there's the different methodology, right? Of what does your customer base want, right? Do they want a classifier every match? Do they only want does the club only want to fulfill the reaffiliation process and have X matches with classifiers, or how many stages you got? Like, I think you guys host 7 or 8 stages each month.
Yeah, our locals are typically around eight stages, just kind of depending on how many people we see are registered and coming out, but usually around 8.
Mm-hmm. Up in Michigan, we've had a precedent-setting year, right? Like one of my home clubs, Oak Hill Gun Club, that the Michigan section's at again. Last year we maybe had 40 shooters. This year we're at 70 plus. It's insane great. Of how many people are now coming out and shooting. A lot of new faces, which is nice because, as Chris Vasilian always says, I'm putting in two matches worth of money in the bank.
Right.
It's like, it's just nice, and we don't run classifiers, but we run 7 stages now. I wish we started a little bit earlier now, because getting out of there a little bit late with that extra stage or two, it's like, oh my Lord, this is a long day.
Yeah. Well, that's really great to hear, because I know there was a little bit of a time that Michigan, some of the attendance had come down a little bit, probably for a variety of reasons, but it's really excellent to hear that attendance is starting to ratchet back up.
Mm-hmm. It definitely it's nice to see you don't have to worry about your club surviving at that point. It's like, all right, we can actually put money in the bank, buy new props, buy the materials we need, and make the clubs happy, like the host club happy. Like, all right, we're getting enough money in to make this worthwhile, right?
Like, it really kind of feeds on itself, right? So
mm-hmm.
Success breeds success, and so as you start to have those higher attended matches, even local matches, then like you said, you have a little bit more money to reinvest in, whether it's props, it's better walls, or other things, or more creative stages you can set up, because you have more things to do that with. And so when that happens, then people are like, hey, these are better stages, these are more exciting and fun, and then even more people come. So it success breeds success.
Yeah, also a huge uptick, even in Ohio, in the number of competitors coming out to these club matches. I talked to Scott earlier this week. Somehow, and I'll fall on my sword here, I made a mistake. I put our first Sunday match on the 8th, so which is the second Sunday, not the first. So we're directly conflicting with Scott's match, and we're sitting here with 94 entries, which we can probably serve 75. So we're going to have 15 people sitting on the wait list. On top of that, so same weekend, same day, he's full with 20 people on his wait list too. So there's enough draw in northeastern Ohio or northern Ohio to fill 2 matches.
What's the driving distance between Cardinal and DSC?
Probably an hour and a half ish.
Yeah,
hour 45.
Probably closer. Yeah, hour and 45, 2 hours, something like that.
Well, I might drive faster than Corey, so maybe it's a little less time for me.
Well, your truck is bigger, so I mean, it's gonna go faster.
Same size truck, just a little bit bigger engine.
Bullshit! That thing is the same size. That thing is like
it's taller. Dan can't see over the hood.
Right. Remember, Dan, why do you have like the little stairs that flop out? Not the running boards. I mean, like actual stairs that will pop out.
No,
so you can,
they are the power running boards that come down, but it actually operates as a stair.
So we were down in Alabama last year, and somehow the power controller for the powered running boards got bumped, and you should have seen Dan like stranded up in the top of the truck. He couldn't get out.
He's like, Corey, catch me.
First of all, there's no video of that happening, so it didn't occur.
What are you talking about? Your Shelby definitely has that video somewhere. It just won't share it with you.
You're right. There is no video of that, but it did occur.
Yeah. No. No, that's really cool, and it's nice to see that you've got those different. You're able to fill those matches, right? And there's always people who are going to shoot just your local match. If it's Cardinal or if it's Scott's Range. There's people who only go shoot there, and they don't even realize that there's other ranges that do this too, right? Like some people are like, that's where I do this at. That's all I do it at.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see when you see people come around and jump around. It's crazy. Like I've seen people from the Detroit area. They will drive the hour and a half, 2 hours to Lansing to shoot Chris's match. And I'm like, there's a match literally like down the road from you guys at Raccoon Hunters, but they choose to go there, which is really cool to see too. It's like, you put on a good match, you get people to come, right? Like if they say, if
people are listening, I would encourage you to go explore and find other matches than just the normal local match, the close by club that you always shoot at. And the reason that is you really get a different experience. The types of stages, for example, that we set up at Cardinal for our local matches are different than the way Scott sets up stages for his local matches. It's a different experience. And so you might like one or not like the other, doesn't matter, but having different experiences and going and seeing how different match directors, different stage designers create stages, it just really expands I'll call it expands your aperture of what you've experienced with USPSA.
Especially if you want to go compete on a larger scale. If you expect to be able to go to Cardinal, I'll say this, I think it's if you expect to go to compete at Cardinal and then come to Area 5 or Buckeye Blast or IPSC Nationals, you're probably a good you've got a good taste of a level 2 match or a level 3 match. But if you expect to go shoot, even Manny, no offense, and I've never been to your match, but my guess is your new club is not quite to the level of what a level 3 match would be.
No, it's definitely not, and we're still through our growing pains of what do you have on props and the range itself.
It's going to be hard if you have a competitor that shoots your club match and you convince them to, hey, why don't you come down to Area 5, or hey, even why don't you come to Michigan section? Like there's going to be a big learning curve for them to shoot that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, especially those brand new shooters, like the fresh ones, like you get like some of the guys who are members there at that range, like they come shoot our local match and that's all they know, and which is great to see. And I've told them, like I'll ask them where they live, because most of our members live decent, like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from the range itself. And I'm like, you could go shoot at Oakland, like Oakland County. You could go shoot at DSC, all these other matches over there that you like are within 20 minutes of your house.
But yeah, I would encourage, one of the things that we've done and I thought has been really good is trying, showing and exposing competitors to a variety of things. And I remember one of the early matches we had a fixed time stage, local match, not a level 2 or 3. It was a local match. We had a fixed time stage. I probably had a half a dozen people come to me and say, is that even legal? Are you even allowed to do that? Because they had never been exposed to it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, single hand shooting, prone shooting, all the different types of things. What better place to experience that than spending, what it costs to enter a local match versus you show up at a level 2 or level 3. I don't even know what fixed time means, or I've never shot weekend only. And so if you can expose folks to those types of different things, the local matches are really an excellent place to practice that.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah, you build them and grow them up to shoot, level 2s, level 3s, nationals, by giving them an experience, a taste. One thing I've noticed about fixed time is you definitely have to have a good solid base of ROs on all of your squads to understand fixed time.
Oh, sure.
Like I think we hosted one match locally around here that had fixed time last year. And we had to make sure everybody was squared away on fixed time, because that's the last thing you want is invalid scores.
Right.
Because oh, well, what did you mean we couldn't shoot extra shots? You just said it was fixed time. And it's like, and then you explain it to them, but it worked out well. So everyone, But then when they came see it at the section match, they were fine with it because they had experienced it. And it's always fun. There's always the methodology of it. Do you go and try to get all the points? Do you try to just go as fast as possible and see where you land? Um, that's the
Well, the
one cool
interesting
thing
thing
about
of all
fixed
the
time.
different scoring methodologies within USPSA, they do have different strategies associated with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they do test different shooting skills. I know everybody doesn't like, necessarily like Virginia count or fixed time or things like that, but they do test different skills, which I think are all reasonable in a competition setting.
Right. Well, and when you don't you, I think you and I believe in this. I mean, shouldn't the best shooter of the match be able to perform all of the skills required? So
Yeah,
shouldn't one hand and like restrictive scoring be part of those skill sets to be good at?
absolutely.
I mean, I would say restrictive scoring. I mean, more like shot calling, right? So if you can call your shots and know you have good shots, it's how it is.
And that goes back to, and I'm gonna bring it up because everybody else does. At Area 5 last year, we had the what was dubbed the lovingly dubbed the stripper pole target.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah, you trained to shoot in the center to shoot center alpha.
Hmm.
Well, guess what? I took center alpha away. Figure it out. And when you think about the scoring of a target, what's better, getting an alpha Mike or two Charlies? What's better, getting an alpha Mike or an or a Charlie Delta? You know, you have to figure it out. So
And it was a fair shooting challenge. It was fair because everybody was shooting the same thing. We actually had a lady who had reached out to me. She was relatively new. I think she's only been shooting at that time. Had only been shooting for a year or two, and she said it was one of the most unique targets that she'd ever seen. She really worked hard on trying to make sure she got her hits, and she admitted she put one in the black, but it doesn't matter because and she even admitted she's like, I just need to get better. The target was fine, the shooting challenge was fine. So I do think that that's one of the things that we do try to challenge people with is the variety of different shooting challenges. Look,
Hmm.
I know people like to see how fast they can pull the trigger. That on some of those, that's fine. I mean, having a stage or two of that is awesome. It is a ton of fun. But also having, a 35, 40-yard target that you really have to, check out your sights and know where how many people know where their rounds hit at 40 yards.
Hmm. Right. Know your equipment, know your skill, right? Like, or know your limitations on what you can split at 40 yards. It's like
Absolutely.
you can't necessarily. Not everyone. Maybe right. Corey with the PCC can do a 25 split at 40 yards, right? I mean, like,
maybe not. You never know.
I
Maybe not.
mean, depends on who's driving Corey's PCC, right? I
Right.
mean, if Corey had that mean arms, that maul,
It's
he definitely could do it.
on its way.
Well, eventually, right? Or do you actually get shipping confirmation?
Oh, it's on its way eventually. But
Oh, okay.
the point goes back to if you can't shoot 40 yards at your local home club, go somewhere else. And we're not saying go somewhere else and don't go to your home club anymore, but go somewhere else and check it out and shoot there once or twice a season.
Hmm.
And I think of
Thank you for checking out another episode of Manny Talks Shooting. I greatly appreciate it. And if you could do me a favor, please go patronize our partners when you are available. We have always, as the title sponsor, D2 Custom Guns. We've got Outdoor Dynamics, Make Stuff Better, 2 Alpha Apparel, Range Panda, Laugh and Load, Hunter's HD Gold, and Southern Bobby Q. Now, thank you. Let's get on with this episode.
if you go to Brooklyn, there's one bay that you might get 30 yards at. You're not going to have a ton of distance at Brooklyn. But if you go to Livingston, they've got a bay that you can shoot 150 yards in. Now they're not going to use 150 yards in a USPSA match, but they could.
Yeah, and usually it's the big steel all the way out there too, on the top of it's the largest poppers on a shaky bridge.
Right.
What was that? I think that was the last year at Livingston was,
Not that it was on a shaky bridge, and it's not that it's a big popper. It's a big popper
Yeah.
on a shaky bridge.
but don't forget it's a really hard lean
And
on a
it's,
shaky bridge. But yeah, and it was more funny watching Brad Crumey have to try to calibrate it on the shaky bridge, like
That
do a
was
calibration
awesome.
call.
That was a lot of fun.
And then the guy couldn't even take the third reshoot because he's like, I'm out of ammo. I'm like, well,
Right.
sucks to be you then.
But I think the theme of this is try to experience different things. Different clubs, different stage designers, different match directors, experience different things. I know, Corey talked about a little bit about going down to IPSC Extreme. We're going to be hosting IPSC Nationals at Cardinal. One of the reasons we went to IPSC Extreme is we wanted to go to a major IPSC match to see how things run. There are things that we saw there that were really, really good, and some things that we saw that we'll do differently. But you learn no matter what. You learn the things that you like and you can replicate. You learn the things that you don't necessarily like. Might be good for that club, not good for our club. That's okay. But having those variety of experiences makes everybody better match directors, better stage designers, better competitors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, keeping on the theme of the IPSC Extreme, you went down there with, Todd Holmes, Matt Hopkins. You guys went down there and had a blast. And took away a lot of things that we're going to have to either take and modify or implement at IPSC Nationals in August, right? Like,
Yeah.
none of us have ran an IPSC gear check before. None of us have done a 3-2-1 formatted themed match. And, we're all pulling off of different specialties and skill sets when it comes to this stuff. Like, we got Matt Hopkins, designing stages and coordinating stages. You know, we all like to be. Everyone I feel likes to throw their own flair into things, but it also helps when you've got a collaborator, who can make the whole match, sees the whole match picture too, right? Like 24 stages in 3 days is going to be a challenge, nonetheless.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think one of the interesting things, sorry, Corey, I was just going to say, maybe you'll comment on this as well. I think one of the big changes for folks who've never shot an IPSC major match is the gear check. Going through and having a full-on gear check at check-in is something that USPSA competitors don't really see. You get to your first stage, the ROs kind of check you out, make sure you're good, but having an official you know place when you go in and you register and you're signing up before the day of the match and you have all your gear checked out is something that's a little bit different. I don't know, Corey, if you want to talk about that a little bit as well.
I mean, that's definitely different. I understatement how different that is because, but and I think there's a positive to that. So and this goes back to Dan. You went and shot the world pistol shootout. I want to say a couple years ago, and you guys had a similar situation. You had a gear check before you even start shooting. How many times as a range master have you bumped someone to open because their mags are too long?
Right.
Guess what? If you have a gear check before the match starts, that person with mags that are too long can go fix it before they shoot.
Or just simply take it out of the match. Like,
Sure.
hey, I've got 7 magazines. This one didn't fit the mag gauge. I'm just going to I'm going to leave that at the hotel
Right.
and only use the ones that are legal.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, one of the things, and everybody will be able to know this. I mean, you'll have a card that'll talk about your gear. It'll include the serial number of your firearm. It'll include some various information as you go stage to stage to stage. So I do think do some research on what that'll look like, but that will be a bit of a different experience. And I do think the 3-2-1 format will be also a new experience for people who haven't shot that kind of format. And so for the folks that don't know, it's 3 small, 2 medium, 1 large stage, and that ratio.
Mm-hmm. Which definitely makes a 24 stage match on round count a lot more reasonable when half of your stages are going to be less than 12 rounds apiece.
Exactly. The interesting thing is what's challenged, and I think that the team who's building out for IPSC Nationals is doing a great job, and I'm giving a lot of credit to Matt Hopkins on this. Just because a stage has 12 rounds or less doesn't mean it can't be a really compelling, challenging, and hard stage. Simply because you only shoot 10 rounds doesn't mean that it's not going to challenge your shooting skills. And I think that Matt's done an excellent job as he's building out those stage designs of making them really creative and really interesting and challenging, but staying within the IPSC rules.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's not just stand and shoots. It's not like the 12 round stage is not a stand here in the box and do a double build drill. It's
No,
you could have a 2-3 position short course.
I don't. I'd have to think back through all the stages we've looked at, but I don't know if there's many, if at all, just literally stand and shoot 12 rounds.
Right. And that's not the IPSC style. So the IPSC, if I told any match director in the United States, in my opinion, maybe not any, but if I told the majority of match directors in the United States, hey, I need you to have an 8-round stage or a 10-round stage, they'd look at me and say, okay, well, there has to be a mandatory reload, and you're going to stand in one box.
Boo.
Right. I mean, that's what I thought when someone told me that IPSC, when we were going down to IPSC Extreme, and they said, oh, half of your stages are going to be short courses, under 12 rounds. I'm like, okay, be prepared to stand in a bunch of boxes. I don't think there was one box, I don't think there was one stand and shoot stage at IPSC Extreme. Now, there were 27 swingers.
That all had the same presentation.
The same presentation, but not one stand and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think I was looking. There was like at the PCC World Shoot. There was one stage. I don't know if you saw it, Corey, the guillotine stage where the targets dropped. Like so that looked like to be the only stand and shoot stage like for that whole match. But it was a very interesting stage because it had a very vast quick time element to it. You had like your timing had to be perfect if you decided which plan you wanted to take those activator targets.
And don't get me wrong, when we're looking at stages for IPSC Nationals, we've done quite a bit of investment in the props that we're using this year too. So we've got somewhere between 6 and 8 more swinger bobber combo units. We've got the stomp pads that we used at Buckeye Blast. What else did we had to buy all new steel. So like you're going to see a lot of fun stages at IPSC.
Poppers and plates.
Yeah, both poppers and plates, because you're not allowed to shoot plates right now in a level 3 or above match. Most of us don't do it at level 2s because for some reason someone said, "Oh, plates are for dinner." Well,
they are for dinner. I think that's I want to say Jay or Paul had to have coined that phrase.
Well, guess what? You're going to see a lot of plates moving forward at Cardinal.
I want to see, instead of the paper target at Chronograph, can we just give them a plate to shoot at?
No.
And just put it next to the chrono target. Just be like, see, it's okay. You have a plate too.
So you're going to see a lot of plates at Cardinal, specifically at IPSC Nats. But you might even see them. We're working on trying to get the rule changed for Area 5. So
there you go. Yeah, good job, Corey, on your rules committee. Get that passed.
Yeah, now, the issue with plates at level 3, and I think there is a reason for this, is that it does create a scenario where you could end up with reshoots, because if the plate just turns and doesn't fall, it's a range equipment failure. Now, if you build them properly so that there's no turning on the stand, that it literally has to fall, that's the only option. If you hit it, it's going to fall, then it works out just fine. But if it has the opportunity to just turn on the stand, it's going to be a range equipment failure and a reshoot. And in a large match like that, you want to really minimize the number of reshoots. So it's really more on the design of the target versus the actually having plates. So plates can work if they're done properly.
Right.
Yeah. From us, you're not going to see a Texas Star because that's a reach magnet.
And plate racks. Plate racks suck too.
I mean, you might see a plate rack.
I mean, as long as it's a good plate rack.
Well,
I mean,
practice your plate rack.
Oh.
I can't promise, cannot confirm or deny.
I mean, as long as you buy a good plate rack, I mean, we might. and truly, I mean, I understand, clubs use what they've got on the premises or what they have, but that's not the place to test a major match is not a good test to play, place to test experimental targets that you can't trust or validate, or the old plate rack that lived there on the range for 20 years before you decided to use it.
And never got stored inside. It just sat there and through the elements.
Yeah.
One thing I cannot guarantee that we won't have is a Holy Monkey Swinger. You never know when those things pop up.
I mean, those are consistent. Those are fine.
Those are
consistently inconsistent.
Hey, as long as it's consistently inconsistent for everybody. So these plates, right? Are we talking like a hinged plate? Are we getting hinged plates, or some form of mechanism that is only going to let it fall backwards and not spin, right?
Correct.
So basically, it's a 3/8 inch piece of steel in a small slot that allows the plate to lean forward like this, and when it gets hit, it just pops off.
Right, but
it can't twist.
Can't twist.
Right, and why? And that's not hard to change the rule to be like, to add that verbiage of, if as long as the plate can't twist, like have a form of mechanism to it only can go in one direction. Plate
Yeah,
should
I
be
can't.
fine.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot. We are advocating for that. I don't know if the rules committee will get it taken under advisement for USPSA matches. They are legal in IPSC nationals or IPSC matches, and we are having some conversation with the rules committee about modifying that rule a bit for USPSA.
And I think the way you word that realistically is the design must be approved by the DNRY, or the design must be approved by the range. Even better, the design must be approved by the range master. The range master should be able to say, okay, yep, that doesn't spin. That's not going to spin. That's not going to be a reshoot magnet. You're good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you can't afford more than a handful of reshoots per stage.
Per
You
match.
can,
Per
well,
match.
Right. I mean, I can't afford more than like 5 reshoots per stage per match, and that's on the high side. Like
Yeah.
that's really, really high.
Yeah, that's got to be, that's got to be like the whole kit and caboodle. Everything went wrong. I.e., the first stage at Buckeye Blast for my squad, it was a calibration. Oh yeah, one calibration gate. I get to reshoot it again, and then we changed the popper, and then we had to all reshoot
Alex,
it.
we just wanted to ice you down on that.
That pit. I know you didn't do it, but it was like I was ready to go. Damn it! And then I got iced. It sucked.
You were up, and we said, "Ooh, what can we do to ice Manny down?"
It was okay. It was still a good first opening stage. I mean, it was my stage. I sponsored that stage, so it was fine. It was always going to be a good stage. And I mean, I'll say this too. Like, as we deal with sponsorships for people, like we have some of the best sponsors. I mean, we tell our staff and all of our shooters, like our sponsors, who help us out at Cardinal Practical Shooters, they go above and beyond what we ask for them to. And it's like, they give back to our sport in a big way, and it's really nice.
But it's a great way for us to give back to our staff, our volunteers. Corey and I have, from the very beginning of hosting our major matches, have always had the mindset we have to take great care of our volunteers, and we do. We have amazing giveaways. I think more than 20% of the staff this year won a gun or a gun equivalent. I think that we provide excellent meals from Southern Barbecue, to the point where now we have that reputation, and we have people, when we even go to other matches, reaching out to me and Corey and saying, "Hey, what does it take for me to get on staff at Buckeye Blast or at Area 5?"
Mm-hmm. That's a nice thing, is you set the precedent of having a good match and a good ran officiated match, and it definitely makes people want to work the match, right? Like last year, I think.
To
Go
put
ahead.
to put it in perspective, I've got 103 people that have applied to work IPSC Nationals. I don't need 100. I mean, I would love if I had enough stages to have 103 people. I don't need 103 people, but I have 103 people that have applied to work IPSC Nationals.
Yeah. Which in IPSC Nats is like, God, we have 24 stages, times 3 people per at minimum?
Yeah, probably on average.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, you're going to be in the 75 or 80 probably is the kind of a par number.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to be the biggest toll of match, right? The match that's going to require the most staff. And yeah, it's awesome that people want to work this match. A lot of international people, like a lot of Canadians signed up. I saw, it's good to see and get that experience and the diversity too.
What's interesting, we have some folks from Jamaica that are going to be there, like you said, from Canada. So it'll definitely be an international match. While it's the U.S. Nationals, it'll definitely be an international match.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people. Like I'm looking at the list for shooters, international shooters who've come. Like we've got, Edsel Gino is showing up and shooting open division. Martin Kaminicek shooting production optics. Like big hitters that came for Carry Optics Nationals last year are coming back for IPSC Nationals. I'm surprised. The Frenchman hasn't signed up yet. But I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
It's a little time before August, so there's still time. If folks haven't registered, there's still time to do that.
Yeah, plenty of slots. So one thing I haven't really been looking at is IPSC Nationals, because it's so far. Like at least the squatting, it's just like they're so far away, but it's not, because it's coming up quicker this year.
Part of the Nationals challenge is it's 2 weeks after Area 5, so I'm like, oh, Area 5, I need to focus on Area 5. I'm like, oh wait, I need to focus on both.
Right.
Yeah, at this point, we're all three of us are under a fire of getting shit done for both.
Right.
But speaking of that, we work as a great we work as a great committee, right? There's a lot of us who dabble in, and we punch ideas off of each other, or we punch people. Good job, Sven. He's the punching bag, it seems like. But no, we all work well together.
Well, one of the things I want to give credit to Corey on this, particularly because while we have a great committee of people, Corey set up an Airtable for us to put all of our work lists, all of our checklists, all of our to-dos, and it's really easy. And I'm giving credit to Corey. I'm sure other people can do this, but Corey's the one who put this together for our major matches. It's such an excellent place. Anytime you can log on to the Airtable and you can look to see exactly what are the tasks that are sitting in my name, what exactly do we need to do, who's reached out to different sponsors, who's going to be reaching out. So there's just a one single source of truth, and the Airtable works really, really well for that. So thank you for that, Corey.
Yeah, I need to be organized somehow, because if I wasn't organized, then nothing would get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's things that'll slip through the cracks, right? Like, if we didn't have this organization, we would be all chickens with a head cut off at some point and be like, oh, we totally forgot about this, but somebody did remember it and wrote it down, so at least it's there.
Yeah, like right now I'm thinking about, oh shoot, we need to get jerseys done for Area 5, and we need to get jerseys done for IPSC Nationals.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Just things that we got to get working on, because although it is not, well, by the time this comes out, it'll be June, but we don't have much time because we got to order them, and they got to take, they're 6 to 8 weeks to get here, and pain in the butt. But it's okay, because that's what happens when you want to put on a good match. Look at that nice Ray Zero Sports jersey that Corey's wearing, everybody who's watching the video.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the 2024 jersey, obviously, but
yeah. But speaking, we'll punch back a little bit. We talked a little bit about Area 5. So, obviously Dan was the Area 5 director last year, interim. I think it was nominated between him, Dan, myself, and Leif by some of the sections. And Dan was the smartest pick because he's a lot smarter than I am. But no, he made Dan, when I found out Dan was nominated and selected, I was like, good job, somebody better than me at doing this. But I blame Walt.
You think it's Walt's fault?
Walt's not that you got picked, that he decided to even throw my name in the hat. But Dan served on the board. He did a good job. He made the org survived until now, so we're all good. So, yeah. But anywho, you're no longer the Area 5 director, but you are the Area 5 match director, because it's at the wonderful Cardinal Shooting Center.
Co-match director with Leif.
Yes. Yeah, Leif, who we have slated as to do stages.
Yeah, so if you got any stage complaints, Leif Kunkel, leif.kunkel@uspsa.org.
Especially on the stage names.
Yes.
No, I don't even know. We don't even have a theme yet.
So if you like things, that comes to me, and if you don't, let Leif know.
Just like at IPSC Nationals, if you like it, talk to Corey. If you hate it, tell Todd.
Right.
Because usually it's the other way around. Every time Corey always gets the complaints for some reason.
Right.
But no, I think both these matches are going to be fantastic. Like I was just pulling up IPSC Nationals. We had, of course, it decided to switch to the next screen. But 436 competitors for IPSC Nationals, and Area 5 has a total of 378, which is freaking awesome. But two high-level matches that we're going to be hosting at Cardinal Practical Shooters, or the Cardinal Shooting Center, whatever we want to call it. It seems like
Cardinal Shooting Center, yeah.
Yeah, by Cardinal Practical Shooters. But
yeah.
Lord have mercy, my brain just blanked, but it's okay. So obviously the match is being planned. At some point we'll have stages done. Or Leif will have stages done.
Yeah, we'll have stages. We'll have a match book that comes out, and planning is still going on. But planning's been going on for, gosh, Corey, keep me honest here, a year.
A little bit under a year, yeah.
Yeah.
We start planning. We're already in the introductory planning stages of Buckeye Blast for next year.
Yep.
Realistically, Buckeye Blast is guaranteed to be at Cardinal again next year. We're starting to have the conversations on, do we want to change the date? Is really the first conversation, because weather has been absolutely amazing for Buckeye Blast for the last 3 years. So we're trying to determine do we push the match back a little bit to make it even better.
Yeah, do you leave? So then the thought is, do you leave it to push it to June? Do you push it to some other weekend in May? Like
I
Dan and
think
I
those are
talked.
all discussions, and I don't know if we've come up to an answer yet, but I think those are all on the table.
Yeah.
And
And it's never going to be perfect for anybody, right? Like for everybody, it's
But
always going to be.
here's what I will tell you, and people who've talked to me, they've heard me get on this soapbox a little bit. If you want to shoot a match that is perfectly, 72 degrees and sunny and doesn't there's no wind and there's no rain and there's no clouds, and if you want that perfect thing,
watch
then
golf on TV.
don't ever shoot, because every place that we have matches, sometimes it rains, sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's hot. I mean, you can think of all the different iterations of weather, and that can happen. The funny thing about Buckeye Blast is, as terrible as the weather was, and I actually think 40-degree rain is about as bad as it possibly can be. The following weekend in Ohio was beautiful. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. The week leading up to Buckeye Blast during setup
It was great.
was incredible. It wasn't hot. It was nice, good temperatures. We just got unlucky for a cold front that came through during the few days of the shooting part of the match. We got unlucky. Before and the after, weather was amazing.
Yeah,
I
we get
can't
to tear
control.
down in the nice weather.
Nobody can control that, right? So kind of is what it is.
I think back to the first Buckeye Blast that we had at Cardinal, and the 3 or 4 days of setup was absolutely terrible. And it wasn't as bad as this, but it was. I mean, it misted, and it was between a mist and a drizzle for 3 solid days of setup. And what's worse, shooting in the rain or setting up a match in the rain?
Well, think about it. You had to use rebar to hold the walls up. It
The
wasn't
Right.
even nice stands. It was like,
back in the day of the rebar wall stands, man, those were terrible.
Yeah.
yeah.
Glad that
Were
doesn't
those
happen anymore.
were those zip tied or did they have like
They
I
were
can't
zip
remember.
tied.
They were zip
Yeah.
tied to the. Oh my lord! Like
Rebar driven down into the ground and then zip tied the legs of the walls to them. But you know what? What we talked about before, that's what a new club has to do. That's the best we could do at the time. Then we generated more revenue. We actually had more cash that we could then go get proper wall stands. We could get proper, and so it's all escalated and made it better. But that's the best we could do at the time.
Yep.
Yep.
We
Oh
were
yeah.
super lucky that we had the rebar. I mean, the first match, I think back to this all the time. The first match that we had, we drilled little pieces of wood on the bottom of the wall legs, and we showed up this on Sunday morning, and the walls were all down, and we had to reset all the walls in a half an hour while everybody else was checking in.
Because
And
it just got overnight, it got windy and it blew the walls down.
I mean, that was the first match that we ever had there. I remember Anthony Zabonic fried my drill because we had to drill that many holes and put that many screws into the bottom of these walls.
hmm Yeah, and I mean, yeah, exactly. I started a new club this year, and funding was tight, so we figured out how we could make wall stands. Right, we made 2x4 L brackets that work pretty well. Like, and luckily enough, we had examples from other clubs that did it cheap, like Oak Hill Gun Club. That's what they do, and I'm like, it works pretty solid.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you learn. You learn and you take these new ideas from people, and you make what works. Right, like you guys have these awesome new metal stands. I only saw one of them got destroyed in the pre-match. I don't know how that
And
happened.
one of the things that USPSA is doing right now, and it's in the process, is really creating a club manual that really is a resource for new clubs, especially new clubs, but a resource for all clubs, of things like you just talked about, Manny. Like, how do you build a wall stand? How do you build a target stand? How do you create a budget spreadsheet for running matches? Because it's not just, hey, get a bunch of fees from shooters coming in and put on a match. It's like, no, you've got to buy targets and pacers and there's a lot of expense that goes into hosting a match, and if you're not accounting for all those different, you have to buy a tremendous amount of wood and lumber for building props and so forth. And so if you're not thinking about all those things, it can get you in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that USPSA is working on, there's a committee of folks that are doing that in the areas that they feel like they have a specialty in, and putting that together. It'll be a working document, a working resource. So as new people come up with new ideas on how to do something, we'll be able to put it in there. Folks will be able to access that.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is if you have if you have the desire to start running a match, and you approach, whether you're a member of a club or not, you approach the club that you want to start running it at and say, "Hey, I want to do this. I need 10 grand." Well, how do I prove to them that their $10,000 investment is worth it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the simple question. So if we can show them that, hey, if on average every other club in this area gets 55 shooters a month, we can do 8 matches a year. Does that add up to 10 grand? Do you need the investment recouped in the first year?
Right.
All questions that you have to ask the board of your gun club or whatever. But that's what this guide can help you think through.
I mean, even something as simple as buying steel, you could, as a new club, you could easily drop $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 just in poppers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another thing that we're fortunate, and Dan, between you and I, we've got a lot of contacts in other industries as well. So we don't look at it and say, www.poppers.com, and we're just going to buy the first popper that we see. We do a lot of research to figure out how we can make the money last as long as we possibly can. And I have friends. A friend of mine, another shooter, built all those new target stands. A friend of mine that's another shooter is doing some steel for us for IPSC, for the IPSC poppers. So we have those contacts, and realistically, if you need the contacts, reach out to us. We'd be happy to share, or at least reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in working with you too.
I mean, the one guy might even do it for free because he just likes to give things away.
Well, we're not gonna put it out there for free. That's his decision.
But we know this person. He's a good soul. He loves to tinker and build things in his free time, like his new contraption he was trying to show off after the match or during the match. Was pretty cool, and I mean, some people are actually going to buy that probably. So that guy know who he is. He might listen to this. I don't know. He's got a so-and-so boyfriend, but he's not really gay. It's okay. It's okay. It's funny because every time I razz one of them, the other one's like, "Hey." It's all good. Those two are good buddies though. Lord, I mean, we talked about a bunch of things. But Dan, you decided to throw your hat in the ring for what was, to be the USPSA president, now the director at large. I mean, you've always intended it to be the director at large. I mean, when even you were on the board, they were talking about changing the bylaws. You're like, make it a director at large position and whatnot. And but what really made you tip your hat and say, yeah, I'm going to actually run? I mean, everyone likes the idea of it, and they think, oh, maybe I could do that. What made you decide to finally throw your hat in the ring and say, like, all right, I can be in. I'll run again to hopefully get back onto the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing in terms of the question around director at large or president, I really like the direction that the organization has taken with the director at large. I think it still gives all of the members across the entire country the opportunity to vote for someone. You basically now will have two representatives on the board. You'll have your area director and you'll have an at-large director where you've been able to vote for that person. So I was a big advocate for that. I think that's really good. As I didn't want to, as from an Area 5 perspective, I had committed to the section coordinators in the area that when they put me up as the interim Area 5, that I would not be running for Area 5. And there's a reason for that, not because I didn't want the role, but because when the way the structure works, when the section coordinators nominate a interim area director, when an area director resigns, they nominate an interim director. I didn't want the section coordinators kind of putting their thumb on the scale of saying, hey, we think this person should be elected, and so we're going to put them in the interim role, et cetera. So I intentionally said, I'm not going to run, so you're not putting the thumb on the scale for me. The folks that want to run should run. Fast forward to now, when the opportunity came for a president / at-large director position, I do think I can bring a lot to the organization. I think I have a lot of ideas on how to give back to the members. For those of you who've seen some of the information that I've put out there, I think there's kind of a three-tiered approach on all decisions that we make. I think the first decision is, does this benefit our members? If it doesn't benefit our members, we should think about whether we actually need to do it. Does it benefit our clubs? If it's not benefiting our members or our clubs, we probably shouldn't be doing it. And then lastly, is it growing and benefiting the organization? But the most important thing is, how do we find a way to give back to our members and our clubs? And I think I have some ideas. One, because I was on the board already, but also just the creativity that I've had as I'm thinking about it, bringing a financial mindset. I'm a CPA, so having that mindset of fiscal responsibility. But like an example is new clubs. We've talked a little bit today about new clubs and the financial impact of trying to start up a new club. I'd love to see a scenario where we could create a grant or a loan program where we could help new clubs get started. And maybe we do things, for example, we don't charge activity fees for the first 2 years or the first 5 years of a new club. They can keep that money internally and help build out what they need to build for the new club. It can be subsidized by more mature clubs. We talked at the beginning of this discussion about places like Livingston and others who've been around for many, many, many years. They don't need the subsidies that a brand new club might need. So finding ways that we can do that, giving back to our members and our clubs. We have a tremendous amount. Thank you for flashing that up. We have a tremendous amount of opportunities for buying power from USPSA. So we should be leveraging the ability of USPSA to buy at volume to lower costs for our clubs. For example, if we could buy volume targets and then clubs could buy the targets from USPSA at a lower price point, that's a way that we can give back to our clubs. So those are the kinds of things that I want to really give back and figure out, how do we make it better for our members. I think we did go past the 40,000 member level, which is fantastic, but we got to keep going. How do we increase our number of clubs? We talked about today just the attendance at our clubs and members coming, wait lists at a lot of different places. Those are all trends that are absolutely the right way that we need to be doing this, but we need to double down. When you do something and you're starting to see success, you need to double down on that and really expand that. So from my perspective, there's a lot of discussion around transparency and how does the board do that. I will tell you that my point of view is that unless there is a legal reason or an ethical reason why we shouldn't be sharing something with the membership at large, we should be sharing it. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes there's employment actions that happen, and they could be positive or negative, right? They could be promotions or pay raises or terminations, things like that. Those aren't conversations that should be publicly talked about, because folks that are involved with those have a reasonable expectation of privacy in their own employment matters. However, if there's other areas out there in terms of financial accountability, how are we doing financially? How is the budget coming up with where we stand on those things? That should all be shared with our members. Shouldn't be a black box, shouldn't be hidden. So for me, the litmus test is really, if it's legal and ethical for us to share the information at an appropriate time, we should absolutely share it. And so we shouldn't hold back and say, oh, well, we're the board, you've elected us, and we're just going to keep all this information inside. So those are some of the things that I think are really important for us to talk about. And to answer your question, I think that both the experience that I've already had as an area director, but all the other things that we talked about during this podcast in terms of starting off in Illinois as just an observer, I wasn't even a shooter, all the way through becoming a range master and a match director for major matches, etc. I just want to really continue to give back to the organization.
Mm-hmm. And it's great to see, giving back to the sport and having a good outline and plan of what you wish to accomplish. I mean, everyone, you always hear people who they run for the board and they have all these big grandeur ideas, but they have no real plan. You have an actual plan in place, like to how to get things done. You know how the board works, right? Like that's
Right.
like the biggest thing is everyone's gets super gung ho about they join the board and then they realize, and they've got all these plans for day one, and then they realize that how does the board actually work? How can they work with their other area directors? Because without working in communication, it stifles everything because nothing goes the way they plan.
Well, and I will say that the board is a political body, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
folks are elected. There is conversations that go on there. What I will tell you that in my time on the board, for the most part, there was proper decorum. There was excellent discussion and debate on topics. That doesn't mean that all, 8 people got along on every single topic, and they shouldn't. If you literally have 8 people who just get together and rubber stamp whatever anybody else says, you don't get to the best answer. You do get to the best answer by having a good dialogue and debate and discussion. And one of the things, Manny, I was sharing with you, I mean, there were times, I will admit, that I went into a discussion on a particular topic that I may have had a point of view. And then as we discussed it and debated, and I heard the other area directors say, hey, this is what I think, and these are my experiences, and this is what I'm hearing from my constituents, etc., I changed my mind because I hadn't heard those things before, right, from other people. So I think going into those types of discussions with an open mind and being able to hear what other people have to say about it, and not just digging your heels in and saying, well, this is what I think, and I'm not going to come off of that, I think is the right way of doing it. And so I will say that I would, all of the discussions that I had were always respectful and were appropriate. Not always getting along with everybody. You don't just necessarily say everybody says something and I'm just going to follow it.
Mm-hmm. Manny, would you toss the ad back up?
Yeah. I just wanted to see Dan's pretty face. It's kind of hard when he's when it's just over here. I like seeing his lips move. Go ahead.
I think one of the things that I would call out, and this is a conversation Dan and I have had a lot, is that just because you're a range master or a chief range officer or a stage designer, match director, doesn't necessarily make you a good board member. Because realistically, especially the at-large director, like they don't have a responsibility to be a match director, whereas hypothetically the other area directors at least have a responsibility to put on an area match. But I think the last 3 bullet points under experience are the most important for Dan: contract negotiations, certified public accountant, and certified fraud examiner. And I don't call out the CPA and the certified fraud examiner part because USPSA needs those specific skills. We've got a CPA or an accountant that does the work. Dan's not going to be the accountant for the org. But it's the experience that comes along with that helps to add the executive level expertise that Dan has to the board.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Corey. I think it's having the experience to ask the right questions is really what I try to bring to the table.
Yeah, and with adding that, you build a better, stronger foundation for the organization too, right? If you get those second set of eye or the different lens of eyes going on, right? Like, as Hunters HD Golds always says, they don't, they change so you don't have to. I mean, that's kind of one of those things. Dan's there; he's got the experience. He can look at things in a different avenue, and so we don't have to. We can pivot on that, right? And
that's why 100%, Manny. Sorry for cutting you off, but that's why we have a board. Mm-hmm. If you didn't need the 9 sets of eyes and the 9 opinions, then we should just have an executive director that makes all the decisions and call it a day.
Right.
But the fact that we have 9 different people on the board and that Dan may not always get along with every single one of them, and it's not get along, it's Dan may not always agree with every single one of them. That's the important part. That's the reason why we have a board. And we don't, in comparison, IDPA is owned by someone. There is no board of directors. There's one person that gets to makes the rules, and that's fine. It works for them, but it's not something that's not the way USPSA operates.
Mm-hmm. So I guess just to kind of wrap that part up, Manny, I would say first of all, I would love for the folks listening in to I'd love to earn your vote. What I really want you to do is vote. Even if I'm not your choice for this role, do exercise your ability to go out there and vote. I'm in addition to being a strong proponent of the Second Amendment, I also think that as a citizen, it's really important that we vote. That is how you get represented. So please vote for me. But if you're not going to vote for me, please do vote because I do think that's important.
Yeah, exactly. And we can't get change anywhere if you're not willing to put your neck out there and throw your duty and vote for your organization, right? Like, everyone complains about how things go in the world or in an org when they didn't vote at all, or they could have added something to the conversation yet they didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So Dan, is your time? I want to talk a little bit about your time as Area 5 director. At your time, how many? Like, was it daily? Was it weekly? You were having conversations with members on
I
different
wouldn't
topics.
say, yeah, I wouldn't say it was daily. I would definitely say weekly. I would have some conversations. Sometimes those conversations took the form of an email, and sometimes it was just an email exchange back and forth, and that satisfied the member, or they'd have a question, or just needed to be directed to, hey, I've got a question about my classification. Can you help me get connected with the right person because it doesn't seem like it's calculating correctly or something like that. But I would say, usually every week I either had somebody reach out. Sometimes people would call and want to have a conversation. But it was probably not daily, but probably every week I had some kind of a communication with a member.
Hmm. Well, and that's the best part is being open to the membership, yet not being like this is my whole life, because in all reality it is a volunteer sport. It's a volunteer position. Dan still has a good family who want to see him at home and not always be locked in his office or on the phone, if he doesn't have to be, right? Like your job is already demanding enough. Like no one wants to see you stressed out all day on the phone. So I mean, there's a work-life balance and a volunteerism balance as well with all this.
Manny, I don't know
Yeah.
about that. I mean, I've met his family. I think they're
What are you talking about, Corey Click? It's okay. Lisa would adopt you too, except you're
Well,
too old.
to your point, it is a volunteer organization. We only are going to be successful if we have high quality volunteers who want to step forward and help run the organization. That is how we get better. If we make this such a negative experience, we won't get the best talent. We won't have the best volunteers stepping forward if we're not reasonably nice to our range officers and our CROs at matches. If we just beat them up every single time, they'll stop volunteering. They'll go do something else with their time.
Hmm.
I don't think we're there yet. I mean, I really truly think our volunteers are amazing. People travel long distances and take time away from their family and their work to really do this as a volunteer endeavor. We got to keep that going. That will be our future success.
Hmm. Yeah, and without growing on the future, we're just going to stagnate, and we'll never be able to grow or survive, right? Because we talked about promoting junior shooters, right? Like that's another big thing is like bringing the youth into the sport and keeping them going, right? Like I know one of the big missions of Cardinal Practical Shooters or Buckeye Speed, whatever the nonprofit organization's really called, that's one of your big mission statements is increasing the shooting sports in the youth in Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah, Buckeye Speed Shooters, and absolutely, we're working towards, hosting a youth camp. We're still figuring out exactly what that looks like, but we will be hosting a youth camp because we do really think that that's the future of our sport. And so, yeah, we'll be doing that here in the near term.
Hmm. And that's one of the great things, right? Like everyone talks about, when Christian Seiler came up, he was taking the MGM shooting camps, youth camp out in his area, and that's how he became so successfully good in the beginning. Besides his work ethic and his determination to be a winner, these kind of camps are really what spark interest in people to be competitive in the sport and push, right? If it's USPSA, IDPA, Steel Challenge, you name it, they're gonna push for whatever they want to do, and I mean, giving them the opportunity in this kind of in a camp like this that is part of your mission, definitely is the step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And what I would love to see is, and I know kids can't do it, or there's not a lot of father daughter or father son duos. I would love to see those guys go from a local match and take an RO class together, and then work maybe the Buckeye Blast or a match together, right? And then really give back, and then like this, because it's a way for like a lot of people. Some people don't have a lot of extra cash to go just shoot majors, right? Like especially with the cost of majors. Some people like, oh, I want to go shoot this, but they can't figure out how to way to afford it all together. But hey, if you go work the match, we're gonna help you out. And that, giving back to the sport, you still get a good competitive equity shot at shooting the match on staff day. But then you can give back and see all these other good shooters shoot the match. Especially growing up, coming up in the sport, you see what the top shooters can do in the match, and it really can prove, show you what's really possible within like the top of the sport. Like I remember one of the first matches I think we ever met really at Dan was 2023 Area 5, right? And we had like like Max Michelle, the Shane Coleys of the world. They actually came through, and you got to see them, and it was remarkable. I never had seen anybody at that level before, but it was
Yeah.
cool, right? Except you have the crappiest stage of the whole match because you made everyone's feelings hurt.
They did hurt a lot of feelings, including the Super Squad, but it was definitely a difficult shooting challenge. We'll just put it there.
Yeah, and then they were so evil they put it back up and they made it fixed time,
Right.
which I don't know if that made that stage any better, but it was still fun to watch. See it, get some people to be able to get some form of redemption on it the next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the sport is ever growing, and it's good to see people like yourself who are able to give back, in multiple different aspects of the sport. If it's running the local match, running a major match, or being on the board. There's definitely different avenues for people to take, right? So I think the biggest thing is we can also say too is start at the local level, right? Volunteer to run the timer, volunteer to run the tablet, volunteer to build a stage. I mean, because that's one of the biggest hurdles for a lot of clubs, right? Is getting people willing to go set up the match. I mean, you guys are like at Oak Hill, we're very fortunate. We had 12 total people out there setting up for a local match last weekend.
That's great.
Like, and I don't know, like the one club I run, there's 2 of us going to be setting up the match. Like,
Yeah.
which, I mean, it's all about who's available and what time you do it. But it sucks sometimes. How many guys do you normally have at Cardinal Practical Shooters for setup, not including yourselves?
I don't know. It probably ranges, keep me honest here, Corey, 4 to 6 probably is pretty normal.
I think sometimes we get a little bit more than that, but 6 is really probably the solid number, and that's probably including us. 6
Mm-hmm.
if we. We're also very fortunate though. So if I look at the rest of this year, and maybe we're tipping our hand a little bit, but if I look at the rest of the year, so the next match is on the 8th. It's going to be a redo. It's going to be a redemption type match for Buckeye Blast. So it's going to be all of the dirt bays of Buckeye Blast.
-1, right?
Yeah, I think one got torn down and maybe minus some steel or something like that. So I think there's a little, it might be a little bit different, but pretty close to that.
But we'll likely be out there Saturday, retooling the match and making sure that it's it's fine.
Yeah.
Then the July match will be another redemption match. It's going to be the redemption match from I forget what national.
Factory Gun Nationals.
Curry Optics Nationals.
Right. It's going to be a retool of the Carry Optics Nationals Factory Gun Nationals staging. And then we're not going to have a club match in August because I can only put up with being on the range for 2 weeks at a time. So
3 is too much.
Yeah, 3 weekends. Well, 5 weekends is too much in 1 month. So we won't have a club match, but in September we're going to have a club match, and it's going to be a retool of IPSC Nationals. So if you do it smart, like we are, I think if we run an October match, which sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, we're only going to have to set up like one match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from start to finish. Yeah.
And even if we take those major match stages and retool them a little bit, and that's typically what we do. We move some targets around. We might move a wall here or there. So it's moving some stuff around a little bit, but it's not the heavy lifting of building 8 brand new stages.
Right.
Right. And you have the availability to do that because not everyone can use the dirt bays or range 4 at Red Feather Outfitters Cardinal Shooting Center. Right.
Well, and the interesting thing is, as folks are listening, they're like, "Oh, well, I'm already going to shoot nationals, so why would I come back out and reshoot?" Well, they will be different stages. It'll feel different. There'll be different starting positions. The targets might be moved around a little bit. It will feel different.
But even better, even if you shot the exact same stage, even if we don't touch a thing on a stage, you get the opportunity to shoot it again.
Mm-hmm.
So you can shoot it again now with your open gun, or you can shoot it. You can do whatever you want. So it gives you a lot of flexibility.
And no rain.
And no rain.
In June on the 8th, no rain.
Yeah.
Yep. It'll be our luck. It'll be the luck of everyone who shows up. It'll just start to piss on you again. We just be like, these stages were cursed with rain. I think the problem was the silly stage name. Like, okay, I felt bad for Dave Melvin having to read like the longest stage name for the whole match, like the one about the women in ponds and like forms of government. I'm like,
we're gonna nominate Brad Crumey for that. He had the stage name responsibility.
Yeah, he definitely did, and it's definitely it was a good match. I liked the theme. I think the trophies, if people, they should be arriving to people sooner than later, if people haven't gotten them yet. They're pretty cool. I mean, we all designed them as a committee with Make Stuff Better, and that was the cool thing is we took a general idea, and he was able to make our idea a reality. So
Yeah, Make Stuff Better does some great stuff.
hmm it's okay. So make sure.
They actually make stuff better.
Yes, they do. I mean, they were there on site for Area 5 last year. I wish we could convince them to be there for Area 5 or IPSC this year. Maybe we'll see what we can do. Maybe Dan's cute face will be able to get the Wolves to agree. Because for some reason he's a cuddly teddy bear.
They like Corey better than me.
I don't know. You hand him checks, so
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, money does talk. No, but that was cool. I don't know. They were so busy, like on the Area 5. Like every Canadian shooter I knew was like, "Oh, I want all my mags lasered," and they waited to the end of the match to get them all done. So they were lasering all day. Like,
Yep.
Luckily the Wolves weren't leaving until Monday anyway.
Right.
So it was like, all right, we can be here on the range all day, lasering mags. Like,
We'll see him at Kentucky, so hopefully we can browse
Convince them.
a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would love, especially for IPSC Nats. There's a lot of shooters coming from across the country, across the world.
A lot of international shooters, and I was actually just on the phone this afternoon with Leighton, and we've got a small uptick from PCC World Shoot from international shooters, and he said that he's going to make sure that he's going to be back in the Czech Republic in 3 weeks for IPSC Extreme over there, or the Extreme Euro or something like that.
Sounds about right.
And he's going to push it again, and why not? Why not get as many people from international as possible?
Yep.
Oh yeah. I mean, it might be the U.S. Nationals, but it's still an IPSC match that is prepping people only a couple of weeks before the World Shoot.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's why you guys pushed for 24 stages. It was going to be 18?
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, we're going to go all out. We're going to use every single bay at the Cardinal Shooting Center, and we're going to make this match awesome.
And we're going to challenge your shooting skills.
Yep. And your wallets. But no, there's a lot. What's the round count roughly? It's like near 600 rounds essentially for that match.
Don't know.
We're not 100% done with the stages yet. So.
Yeah. Well, people figure it out eventually.
Probably if you do average, it's probably going to be a little less than that. Probably more like 450 to 500.
Bring your ammo, people. There's
Bring
warm-up
your ammo.
days.
Exactly.
Bring your ammo. Now that's the one thing that's really worried about looking at the PCC World Shoot. Like they're all white targets. I'm like, no, don't shoot the white guy. Don't shoot the white target. No shoots are red in IPSC rifle at least, or PCC mini rifle.
Yeah.
But yeah,
an option. It's not. There's not a standard.
Oh, is it? It can be whatever you want. You just have to pick and stick with it for the match.
Yeah.
The only thing that'd be a pain in the butt is if we're doing red no shoots. And if someone knows they're from PCSL, figured it out, like, how do you get red no shoot pasters? Like, are we spray painting pasters here or what?
So we're actually. It wouldn't shock me if you could actually get red pasters. We can get red painted targets or red printed targets now, so it wouldn't shock me if we could get red pasters.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, Corey, do you have any more questions or conversations you want to pose to Mr. Dan while we're on here tonight?
No.
All right. Well, Dan, do you have anything that we haven't already talked about you want to make sure that we hit?
No, I just so Manny and Corey, thank you both for the time tonight. I do appreciate getting on and talking with you guys tonight. Like I said, I do encourage folks, if you haven't already, to go out there and vote. But even if that doesn't happen and you still have ideas, feel free to shoot me or Corey or Manny a message if you've got things that you want to see improved. We do have the opportunity to talk with a lot of different folks, and so happy to hear new and fresh ideas as well.
For sure.
But thank you, Manny.
No problem, and thank you for wanting to come on and talk with the people. I mean, you might not be on social media yourself, but I mean, it's good to see that you're like, hey, I want to get out there. I want to do this podcast with you guys and have a good conversation. So it shows that you're willing to be, as you say, transparent, and you want to be out there and get people to know you, right? Like,
Absolutely.
That's the one thing about people who don't, they might be on a board, but they don't really know some of these board members. They don't talk to them or see them. So this is a great avenue for people to have a at least experience a conversation with someone like you and you yourself. I
May be Dan's first podcast.
mean, maybe.
I don't, I
Podcast.
don't, I don't think so. I think I've done at least one or two others in the past. So
Yeah, this is the best one because it was my show. But anywho,
exactly.
but I will say this, people, we did do a survey after Buckeye Blast. We have gone through some of the results of the survey, and don't worry, your feedback has been heard. We just haven't posted it yet. It's just one of those things. I'm working on it. There's too much crap going on, it seems, this year.
Right.
But don't worry, your feedback has not fallen on deaf ears. I talked to a lot of people at the local match I shot this weekend about some of the things, and I'm like, hey, don't worry, it's being addressed. We're working on it. Because they asked specifically about the survey, right? Like they're like, hey, do you guys have a meeting yet? I'm like, not yet, but it's not that it's fallen on deaf ears. I've tabulated it and figured out the top points that we need to focus on and move on, right? Which one being waterproof targets. That's the one big thing that we discussed is like we got to have waterproof targets now.
Already on it.
We're gonna buy them, and it's not gonna rain. That's all that matters.
I'm sure that'll be the case, but I'd rather buy them and it not rain. That'd be fine with me.
I think we need another storage unit though there at the range though for all the targets we're gonna have.
Maybe.
But yeah, no, Dan, Corey, thank you guys for hanging out and chit chatting with me tonight. Thank you, Dan, for willing to continue to be a big advocate for the sport and willing to spend more of your free time dealing with matters for the organization. So I thank you for that. And if we don't, I mean, we'll talk. But everyone, if you want to see Dan, he'll be the election probably I think is over by then, but he'll be in Kentucky, so you can go see him at the Bluegrass Championship and say hi. He'll probably be on stage 11, burning himself to death because that's his space. That's his bay.
Jeez, I hope not.
At least it's not 9. Anything's better than 9.
I really hope not, because it's Dan, Todd, and I really hope not.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you're closest to the food.
It's fair.
That's true.
Bobby and Kim will be right there with like all the snacks.
We're taking a golf cart down with us, so we don't need to be that close.
No, so you're gonna be all the way in pit 1 on stage 4.
That might be.
I mean, Todd might like it because there'll be small stages, but
I like it because it's small stages.
I want a small stage for once. Damn it, I hate the running. Like, and that's gonna be. I hope to like we're all on the same squad to shoot that match. I hope we do not start on the windsucker. I hope we are not starting on 9.
Yeah.
Because that would fucking suck. But anywho, all right, guys. Dan, again, thank you for your time. Corey, thank you, and to the listeners, get out and do the things. We will see you on the next one.